Hi everybody, I'm back and we're talking about the Devil card, card 15. Alright, so first up, this is a card where a lot of decks have changed the name of the card for very obvious reasons. It's one of the cards that give a tarot deck its bad reputation. We spoke with the previous card with Dave, we were looking specifically at a card that has a bad reputation. Here we've got the card that gives the deck its bad reputation. Now it's good to remember before we start that nowhere in the cards has it ever depicted the Christian devil, even though it's called the devil nowadays. Well, later on it was called the devil, but nowhere does it show that. In actual fact, in most old decks, it would be the god Baphomet, um, which predates Christianity. And in some versions, it would be Cananos, who is a horned god from uh, the Celtic traditions, or just simply the horned one. It's any of the gods who have horns. In actual fact, when we look at Baphomet, he is male from the waist down, he's female from the waist up. It's usually got wings, hooves. So yes, it gets a little bit closer to the traditional concept of Satan within the Christian faith, but we are not looking at that. Now, I do have one up here where I just have my own version of a horned god and trying to put in how I see the devil. And that comes from my own personal deck, which is the Serendipitous Tarot. I did leave his name as the devil. I think it's best suited with him because he is the devil in all of us. So let's start with the keywords. He is obsession, he is materialism, he is suppressed anger, but he is also responsibility and responsibility towards the self specifically. Traditionally, the tarot card depicts him as a large goat-like figure, part man, part beast. Like I said, it's usually the form of Baphomet. He's got a hairy pelt. He's got cloven hooves. In some decks, I've seen him have very big phallus along with breasts and such as well. And yes, he was first depicted as either the god Cananos or the Horned One. He was the spirit of the wild or the god of the hunt, whose image became a convenient scapegoat assigned to represent the devil in the upcoming Christian religion at the time. So, as the devil card, the card usually depicts two enslaved figures at the foot of the card, so to speak, and they're usually bound and hopeless, although not always so. So we're going to look at a few depictions. Like I said, because it's such a controversial card, we see a lot of different depictions to this card. It's also good to remember this is also the card for the zodiac sign Capricorn. Now, right, I did bring out the more traditional one. So there we see him, we see Baphomet, we see the upside down pentacle at the top. We see the two figures that are bound with chains to the seat that he is sitting on. Right. Next up, let's go for the Morgan Bria Tarot. Very simplistic side, it just shows like a goat-like figure with horns. We do see an upside down pentacle. Nothing really much to see in that card. I personally love this one, and it's called the Shadow Side. This one we find in the Witch's Tarot, and we see that figure coming into this cave like something. They're hiding, they're very scared of him. Obviously, he's blocking the entrance, they can't get out. This one's also quite interesting. This one is from the Druid Craft Tarot. It's called Cananos. We see the horned god here, Cananos walking up, and we see two figures there, a man and a woman, and they are sleeping. They don't know what is going on. They don't even know he's there. Bringing us to the Wizard's Tarot. Once again, we see the upside down pentacle. We see two toads being bound. This is probably two people that he turned into toads, frogs, not sure which one, and he's bound them completely, and he is called just the Dark Lord. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at exceptionally new take on this cards, and that we see in the Light Seers. We're constantly seeing something new in the Light Seers, and we're seeing this quite good looking man, but he's a puppeteer. And I love this depiction. I love this depiction. So, right, the devil's motives in the card are not clear, but nothing is obvious about this card. Everything is symbolic. He could be protecting the enslaved humans, or he could be reining them in. Is he truly keeping them captured if they don't know that they're in distress? Now, yes, we do see this one card where they look very much in stress, but on the others, they're sleeping, they're comfortable, they're not trying to get away. We don't know what his motives are. All we know is that they are tied to him in some form or another, and that they can't just walk away, or can they? That's the big question here. Now, as it happens, actually, the enslaved looking figures are busy learning a lesson. The chains are a symbol of their own ignorance, and the figures forged the links themselves. Now, see, this is the secret about this card. Knanos, or the devil, this scapegoat, has got nothing to do with these humans. They are blaming him for enslaving them, but they have enslaved themselves. So, sorry guys if you see a disturbance in the video. I've got little Alice Elizabeth here. She came to pay me a little visit here in the office, so which means that my plan didn't work and she's still escaping. Right, getting back to the figures. When we start looking at them, they have forged these chains themselves. They have decided to go into, let's say, for instance, the cave, that cavern that they're in themselves. They have chosen to fall asleep there, and as you can see, those two figures are without any clothing. They are naked. We can probably think of what they were doing. So, they took a backward view of freedom and responsibility, and they refused to be chained to a desk. They failed to recognize the liberation effect of education as they evolved to a lower life form. Now they've reached the swampy bottoms of existence. They might finally see the error of their ways. Well, let's hope so. What that actually means is that we're sitting with two figures that think very much from a primal mindset. They're not necessarily enlightened. They come from a place of jealousy, a place of obsession. They want everything now. This card is a lot about instant gratification, landing you in this situation at the end of the day. We've got this. They're all about materialism. They have chained themselves to this idea, and then they turn around and say, but it's the educational facility's fault. It is because of capitalism. It was my neighbor. It was my husband. It was my wife. It's my parents' fault that I'm not going further in life, that I'm stuck in one place. See, that is the thing about the devil. That is why the devil is in this card, because he's a scapegoat. Actually, he did nothing. He's not holding them truly. When we start looking at the puppet master, you'll see that those strings aren't actually controlling the person there at the bottom. They are hanging there very loosely. The person is free to do whatever they would like to do. You think he's blocking the entrance? No, look closely. He's walking towards the side. They can get out if they want. At the end of the day, they can all get away, but they are choosing to stay there. They're choosing to stay there because they are allowing primal emotions of jealousy and obsession to take them over. They want what they want when they want it. And when somebody looks at them and says, well, you jacked up your entire life, they turn around and say, it wasn't me. I'm not taking responsibility. The devil made me do it. This is a card of not taking responsibility. Now, the inverted pentacle that we see on most of these cards symbolize human mistakes. It represents the reversal of normal priorities, where we've got the right up pentacle going earth, air, fire, water, spirit. It also represents power, knowledge, wisdom, love, and respect. So when we start looking at that, they have thrown that around and they said, we didn't need this. We don't want this. We want lust and obsession. We want to be materialistic. We want to think about ourselves. And when everything goes bad, the devil made me do it. Now, the chains are also a symbol of that responsibility. If you bring something terrible into the world or do something bad, you need to take responsibility for it and therefore will be chained to it for the course of its lifetime. The moment that they rectify what they did, they can get up and leave. The chains will fall from their necks. Those chains are called guilt. Now, in saying all of this, the devil is not a negative card. It's actually quite a positive card, although it represents a negative aspect. Now, darkness involves the forces of destruction and banishment and restraint. It is a necessary force that helps keep the forces of growth and creation in balance, because it is only by seeing this negative aspect, by understanding it, by admitting to it, by taking responsibility for it, that we can rectify, that we can learn from it, that we can walk away from it. This card can be viewed as exceptionally positive if we are self-aware enough to, number one, understand it, and number two, break those chains and walk away from it, learning a lesson from it and not falling into the same trap that we put there for ourselves over and over again. So this card is all about, you feel chained up? Well, you are. It's nobody's fault but yours. You could have chosen a different path. You can choose a different path. You can choose to break away. It's not mom and dad holding you back and what happened when you were 7 years old. We're past that. We're 20, 30, 40 years later. You can choose to be defined by the past, and you might want to use it as an excuse to do negative things to yourself and to others, or to act as an asshole, so to speak. I prefer not to curse on here, but couldn't find another word. You can choose that, but you can't forever blame somebody else. This card is all about responsibility. But this card can also show that this is where you want to be. And if you're fine being chained up and saying the devil made me do it and not taking responsibility, there's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing that anybody can do about it. But I can ask you to think about that. Think about freedom. Think about liberty. You might think you've got freedom, but you don't have freedom until you break away from where you chain yourself up, from where you suppress yourself. The card's name might be the devil, but it's actually got fairly little to do with the devil. In this card, he is nothing but an exceptionally misunderstood figure. Right. Next, we are going to be back with another one of the negative cards, the Tower.